Good morning. My name is Regina June, and I'm the president of GLIFAA, the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Ally Employee Resource Group for Foreign Affairs Agencies. Thank you for joining us at this year's Pride at State. We're thankful, as always, for the support of the Department of the State's Office of Civil Rights and our continued partnership with the Atlantic Council. We have the honor of hearing from several distinguished guest speakers today. They will speak in order of the Atlantic Council Secretary and Executive Committee and Board of Directors member, Mr. Walt Slocum, U.S. Department of State Special Envoy for the Human Rights of LGBTI Persons, Randy Berry, Secretary of the Army, Eric Fanning, and Secretary of the State, John Kerry. The brutal murder of our USAID colleague, Zulhaz Manan, the human rights activist and founder of the first LGBT magazine in Bangladesh, as well as the recent attack against LGBTI and ally community members in Orlando, Florida, have reminded us that serious challenges still exist for the LGBTI community. However, every day, people work to overcome these challenges. And GLIFAA recognizes a member of Foreign Affairs community each year with a special award for his or her contribution and demonstrated commitment to advancing the equality and protection of LGBTI employees. These employees are nominated by GLIFAA members, and for the first time ever, this year we will be recognizing 2 individuals for their specific contributions. The first award recipient is Aaron Schubert, an FSO at USAID in Bangkok. He's being recognized for his effort to ensure all new hires are treated with dignity and respect. He's a health and development officer focusing on HIV/AIDS programs, and he was instrumental in supporting the hiring of the first transgender locally employed staff at the Regional Development Mission for Asia. Aaron unfortunately could not be here in person to accept the award. Our second award recipient is here, and GLIFAA is honored to present its annual award to Assistant Secretary Gregory Starr. Assistant Secretary Starr has explicitly made efforts to right the wrongs and improve relations between LGBTI community and diplomatic security. As GLIFAA Senior Leadership Liaison, he provided guidance and support on a wide range of issues affecting LGBTI employees around the world, including employee safety and security abroad and diplomatic accreditation for LGBTI families. Assistant Secretary Starr attended a GLIFAA meeting this year to honor several GLIFAA founding members at their retirement. They couldn't help notice, but how far we have come. Having the Assistant Secretary for Diplomatic Security at such an event would have been unheard of just 25 years ago. Assistant Secretary Starr, I thank you on behalf of GLIFAA community for all your support. Now, let me introduce our first speaker. Walter B. Slocum is the Secretary of the Atlantic Council and a member of its Executive Committee and Board of Directors. In addition to nearly 4-decade-long distinguished career in international affairs, we're thankful for his support for diversity and inclusion around the world. Please welcome Mr. Slocum.
Thank you, Regina. It's a great personal honor for me to be here to welcome you on behalf of the Atlantic Council to this year's Pride at State. The Council is proud to co-host this event with GLIFAA and the Department, and we especially thank Secretary Kerry for being at the occasion with us. The observance this year is particularly important, coming as sadly and tragically as it does in the shadow of Orlando. The horrible murders there and the all too many continuing abuses of LGBTI people around the world show how interconnected our community has become and remind us to mourn those who lost and suffered along the way, and to demonstrate why, for all the real progress, there is a lot of unfinished business left. The Atlantic Council's overall mission is to help the world work together to secure the future for the Atlantic and the global community. Through research, analysis, and advocacy defining the actions needed to meet the challenges we face, the Atlantic Council strives for a more secure and prosperous world, and one in which human rights are secured for all. LGBTI rights are a critical factor in that agenda. So in March, the Council launched the new Diversity Initiative to further elevate and address LGBTI issues with business, NGOs, and diplomatic and political leaders around the world. In this common effort, the State Department, including the LGBTI U.S. ambassadors and many other foreign affairs officials in many agencies, and with whom Special Envoy Randy Barry works so closely, and the AID and the Defense Department have very heavy responsibilities. I'm confident that with Secretary Eric Fanning at the Pentagon and Special Envoy Barry at the State Department, the whole U.S. government foreign affairs system will forge deeper ties among the departments working on this issue and give priority to the mission of promoting LGBTI rights both worldwide and in the American public service, particularly that part of the public service having to do with national defense and foreign affairs. As Secretary Envoy Randy Barry will be actually introducing Secretary Fanning, but I want to take the opportunity to briefly remark on his new role. During my time as Undersecretary of Defense for Policy at the Pentagon, I had the privilege of working with him as he was just starting his distinguished career. At that time, Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act were the law of the land. The country, and specifically the U.S. military, have come far since then. DADT is gone, and an openly gay man is the Secretary of the Army. His appointment and confirmation are well earned by his experience and his expertise, but it is also a hallmark of the progress made. However, our pleasure at this must not lead to complacency. We still have much work to do. Thank you again for coming today and for the opportunity for the Atlantic Council to co-host this event. Special Envoy Barry.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Secretary, Secretary Fanning, Assistant Secretary Starr, Regina, to the many other leaders and my colleagues who are gathered here today, I'd like to start out by saying a happy Pride to all of you. I myself am so proud and deeply honored to be here with you today. I'm equally proud to work for leaders, for an administration which has long valued diversity, inclusion, and equal protection for all. Since Secretary Kerry appointed me as Special Envoy, I've been traveling an immense amount over this past year, meeting with governments, civil society representatives, corporate leaders, faith leaders, and other stakeholders. And throughout my travels, I've witnessed firsthand how change occurs when visibility and leadership go hand in hand. And I think that what we have before us today is a terrific example of just that. Secretary Fanning is someone who has known personal challenge and adversity. He worked for an institution that once denied him the ability to be open about himself. And I think all of us in this room know the challenges that that kind of environment presents. But look where we are today, how far we've come, and how far Secretary Fanning has come professionally. Secretary Fanning serves as an example of what LGBTI Americans can achieve, and his appointment is a testament to our nation's growth and progress. And of course, we know there is still so much growth to do. Pride is a celebration of progress, of our accomplishments, and of course, about the work that lies ahead. We are ready. We know our allies are ready, and we know Secretary Fanning is ready. So please join me in welcoming Secretary of the Army, Eric Fanning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Kerry, for hosting this important event at such an equally important time, and thank you for including me. Thank you also for your leadership and lifetime of service to this great nation and to this cause. Ambassador Berry, thank you for that warm welcome, and Undersecretary Slocum and the Atlantic Council, great work putting this celebration together. Thank you for your friendship and your national security leadership over these many years. If I have it right, we first met in 1993. I'll let everyone else do the math on that. When I first committed to attending GLIFAA's Pride event, our world was just a bit different. I planned to talk about the Department of Defense's celebration theme and how our military departments, less than 5 years removed from the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, view diversity and inclusion as a critical component of our national defense. But it's hard to be in a mood for celebration after the horrific attack in Orlando less than 2 weeks ago. Among the 49 dead were a former armor specialist, Angel Catalero Padro, and Captain Tony Brown, a member of the Army Reserve. Like so many families in Orlando and across America, our Army family was deeply hurt and saddened by such tragic, senseless loss of life. Among the remembrances of these young men, Captain Brown's regimental commander, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Dasher, recalled that he faced any and all challenges with a smile on his face and an unwavering spirit that everyone in our unit cherished. While we grieved their loss, another member of the military was a hero that horrible day. Imram Yusuf, a 24-year-old Marine Corps veteran, worked at Pulse and is credited with saving the lives of up to 70 people that day. And as I thought more about their stories, and the stories of the other victims and survivors, the heroes and the first responders, I thought maybe it was okay to celebrate this month of Pride. Because as horrific as this attack was, it wasn't an attack on Orlando. It wasn't an attack on the LGBT community. It was an attack on America. And our nation has come together as one to mourn those we lost and to help those who survived and to comfort those left behind. That's a far cry from the violence 47 years ago at the Stonewall Inn, when our very government institutions united to deprive our predecessors of their rights as American citizens. Yes, we have come a long way. When I first started working in the Pentagon, 1993, as an idealistic 24-year-old junior aide, I soon realized that I had to leave because I saw no future for me as an openly gay man. But I did come back, and I've had some great jobs and incredible opportunities that less than a generation ago would simply not have been available to me, or frankly, many of you. I served as Acting Secretary of the Air Force, Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy, and Chief of Staff to the Secretary of Defense. Then, through the vagaries of the confirmation process, I went to the Acting Undersecretary of the Army, the Acting Secretary of the Army, back to the Secretary of Defense's office, and a month and 2 days ago, formally sworn in as Secretary of the Army. Part of my job as Secretary is to tell the Army story. And if you'll bear with me, I suspect it might surprise you to learn that the symbol synonymous with this observance, indeed that of the fight for acceptance and equality in the LGBT community, was in fact designed by a U.S. Army veteran. Private Gilbert Baker, a Kansas native drafted in 1970 and stationed at the Presidio, remained in San Francisco after being honorably discharged from the Army. An artist, Baker met Harvey Milk in 1974, who challenged him to come up with a symbol for the gay community. 4 years after that initial meeting, he came through, and the rainbow flag flew for the first time, a flag that this group has since helped fly across the world. I can't say for certain whether his time in the Army at all inspired the creativity behind this iconic symbol, but the rainbow has been a part of our heraldry for nearly a century. When the United States entered World War I, then Major Douglas MacArthur suggested creating a division of National Guard groups that would stretch over the whole country like a rainbow. And thus, a signal of national unity, the 42nd ID, the Rainbow Division, was born and uses a rainbow flag as its symbol to this day. Today, the celebration of Pride Month also stretches across the whole country, and indeed across the Department of Defense. I remember learning at the first ever DoD Pride event held at the Pentagon that we had been beaten to the punch. Earlier that day, soldiers at Bagram in Afghanistan had already celebrated Pride. We've grown stronger as a military and as a nation as we've opened up opportunities for those who previously didn't have them. By leveraging diversity and creating an inclusive environment in which all are valued, we engender opportunities for people to be part of the greatest mission there is, defending our nation. We rely on those diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and expertise to train, fight, and win in a complex security environment. And if we don't embrace diversity and inclusion, if we don't live our Army values, and we treat each other with dignity and respect, we threaten the very readiness that we are prioritizing as an Army today. Even though for many, the struggle for acceptance, dignity, and equality continues, Americans today are more diverse, open, and tolerant than at any point in our history. That doesn't mean our work is done. As President Kennedy said, the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Indeed, the only way to compete in the 21st century with the growing complexity of global security is to attract the best and brightest Americans willing to serve, regardless of religion, gender, sexual orientation, or gender identification. These security challenges require creative, adaptive, well-trained leaders. It takes decades to grow and train such leaders, and we can ill afford to close ourselves off to anyone. Our national security will suffer, and it will allow bias if we allow bias or prejudice or ignorance to close doors and discourage great future leaders from serving. Building an Army that reflects the rich diversity of America will make us stronger and help us build bridges across our country and into every community. One of my goals as Secretary is to shrink a growing cultural divide between the military and the nation we serve. The military is more powerful when the American people know that no matter what their background, religious beliefs, political views, sexual orientation, or gender identity, we serve and sacrifice on their behalf, on behalf of this country we all love, in order to protect all of our freedoms. I've been surprised, pleasantly in fact, how closely the core Army values that every soldier is required to memorize and live by, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage, could very well capture and characterize the LGBT community's struggle for equality. These values have served as a guide to soldiers and leaders as we incorporate our diverse culture into the ranks. They are not slogans that are paid lip service, but bedrock principles that dictate how soldiers live, train, and fight in order to succeed. What's encouraging to me is that the Department of Defense commitment to equality is more than a story about effective implementation of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which you all know, in some ways you've lived. It's a continuing story of how the military solves problems that many others consider too hard. Desegregating after World War II, 16 years before the Civil Rights Act, integrating women 40 years ago, long before they were fully welcome into the boardrooms or much of the American workforce. Just last year, we opened all remaining jobs in the military to women, including combat arms. And we provide equal pay for equal work. We pay privates and sergeants, lieutenants and generals equally, regardless of gender or race or sexual orientation. And after those policies are adopted, it's the military departments, and soldiers are the bulk of our armed forces, who make them work and, more importantly, endure. As we continue to open opportunities for even more Americans, we get closer to the full American dream that we represent and protect. And we are better able to meet those challenges if we pull from the best all our country has to offer. Throughout the history of the United States, leaders have been charged to develop cohesive units from groups of men and women with vastly different backgrounds across the Army. Only by embracing these values can a leader mold these individuals into a professional, elite team that is capable of meeting the nation's call. As I already mentioned, this is only the 5th year the Department of Defense has recognized Pride Month. There's no question that the State Department has been leaning forward longer and harder to celebrate the contributions of LGBT foreign service officers and civilians. Of course, like those in the Foreign Service who served in silence in the past, before groups like GLIFAA formed to give them a voice, the dedication of LGBT soldiers can be traced back far beyond the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter tells the story of Armor Corporal Lloyd Darling, a 22-year-old Green Beret who was killed in Vietnam in 1968. Amid heavy fighting near the Mekong Delta, his unit overrun, Corporal Darling stayed back to cover its retreat to safety, Carter noted. His fellow soldiers knew he was gay, and they never forgot his courage under fire. Years later, one of his battle buddies said, "He died for us." When the shooting starts, when the battle is joined, it doesn't matter whether the soldier next to you is black or white, Christian or Muslim, gay or straight. It only matters that he or she can do the job. That's a story as old as the Army itself. Friedrich von Steuben, often cited as the father of American military for helping build George Washington's Continental Army, was widely believed to have left his native Prussia for France because it was claimed, in the language of his times, he was to have had affections for members of his own sex. The allegations against von Steuben were never proven, but Ben Franklin didn't care about any such things anyway. America needed to build an army, and von Steuben was a brilliant strategic thinker and tactical leader. Franklin recommended him to Washington, and the rest, as they say, is history. In his proclamation declaring June 2016 Pride Month, President Barack Obama wrote, "Since our founding, America has advanced on the unending path towards a more perfect union. This journey, led by forward-thinking individuals who have set their sights on reaching for a brighter tomorrow, has never been easy or smooth. Despite the extraordinary progress of the past few years, LGBT Americans still face discrimination simply for being who they are. In line with America's commitment to the notion that all people should be treated fairly and with respect, champions of this cause at home and abroad are upholding the simple truth that LGBT rights are human rights." Yes, we do have cause for celebration, but we know that much work is yet to be done. Whether our struggle for acceptance and equality began in the bars of Greenwich Village or continues with the bathrooms in North Carolina, we cannot let our progress diminish our efforts to achieve full inclusion for all Americans who can do the job and just want an opportunity to serve the nation they love. As Secretary Kerry himself said in an LGBT speech to the United Nations, this moment has to be more than a moment to simply celebrate how far we have come. As Army Secretary, I am confident that our institution is committed to judging people not by where they came from or who they love, but how they train and fight. Only then can we truly say we have embraced and lived the Army values that are the bedrock of our profession. Thank you, and happy Pride.
Our next speaker, Secretary John Kerry, doesn't really need an introduction. He has been a long-time supporter of the LGBTI community. In his introduction of Special Envoy Randy Berry last year, he spoke of a moral obligation to speak out against the persecution and the marginalization of LGBT persons, and the commitment to advance the human rights of all beings. He has transformed his words into actions on a wide range of issues, including the treatment of LGBTI refugees and the first ever LGBT 101 online training for the Department of State employees. We truly appreciate his commitment to advance the equality and protection of LGBTI families and their families within the department and across the foreign affairs agencies. It is my honor to introduce Secretary of State John Kerry.
Regina, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. Regina is the first USAID officer to become president of GLIFAA, and I think everybody here will agree she is doing an outstanding job. So thank you very, very much. I want to thank and congratulate at the same time Secretary Fanning. Thank you for your groundbreaking leadership, and we appreciate enormously what you are doing. Thank you for your words a moment ago. Thank you to Special Envoy Berry, who has been doing an outstanding job crisscrossing the world, and I'm proud of his efforts. Proud also of Assistant Secretary Starr. Thank you for your leadership, and congratulations on an award well deserved today. And I'm particularly happy to be here with Walt, a friend of many years, and appreciate his leadership and the engagement of the Atlantic Council in today. Each speaker has recalled events that none of us can get out of our minds, and probably won't for a long period of time. Not quite 10 days have passed since the early hours of June 12th in Orlando, and that is obviously not enough time for healing or for moving beyond the terrible realization that we are more shocked than truly surprised by the events of that morning. The memory of those who were lost will, above all, live on in the minds and the hearts of their loved ones long after the killer's name is most likely forgotten. But as Stuart Milk put it, these victims of a hate crime targeting an LGBT club had their future stolen, their dreams stolen, their future potential contributions stolen from us all in an abhorrent act that is a scar on some of our nation's policies and certainly on our hopes and dreams. No words can lift or enable us to get rid of this sense of tragedy. But I do think that our gathering today can help everyone to feel less alone. And I think it helps to know that acts of terror and hate rarely achieve their purpose beyond the immediate horror that they generate. And whether those actions stem from bigotry, insecurity, fear, or weakness, they are profoundly misguided because they prompt people of goodwill to close ranks in opposition to the very viciousness and bile that the killers hope to spread. We saw that in Orlando, from the emergency responders to the city officials, the police, the average citizens who rushed to help, people who stayed to console, and vowed never, ever to give in to prejudice or hate. We saw it on Thursday with the President's eloquent and compassionate remarks in Orlando. We saw it around the world in the many messages of solidarity that our country received from people in cities like Paris, Brussels, London, Madrid, Mexico City, Tokyo, Brasilia, Nairobi, and elsewhere, all of which have experienced their own days of terror and sorrow. We even saw it in New York at the UN Security Council, which for the first time explicitly condemned a hate crime based on sexual orientation, with Egypt and Russia among those supporting. From Stonewall to New Orleans to Harvey Milk to Matthew Shepard to Orlando, the list of outrages committed against the LGBT community in our nation is long, too long. But those crimes have done nothing to prevent the historic gains that have been made in broadening anti-discrimination laws, legalizing gay marriage, exposing inequalities, and expanding public acceptance. Now, all of us know that none of this progress would have been possible without courageous activists who stood against the tide and accomplished what, certainly in my political life I can remember a lot of people never thought would happen. This progress would not have been possible without organizations like GLIFAA. And it wasn't long ago that LGBT persons were banned, not just from the military, as Eric talked about, but also from this very State Department. Today, we have 8 openly gay ambassadors. It wasn't long ago that our Diplomatic Security Bureau revoked clearances based on sexual orientation. Today, Assistant Secretary of Diplomatic Security Greg Starr has volunteered to serve as the leadership liaison to GLIFAA. And we have hundreds of LGBT individuals in our bureaus, at state, USAID, and posts around the world. And these men and women are not just great LGBT diplomats, they are great diplomats. And I want to thank them and the many more who are carrying the values of America to the world. So we have come a long way, but make no mistake, every speaker has said it, we have a long way still to go, both here, at home, and around the world. In some 70 countries, LGBT status or conduct is still a crime. In more than 10, it is a capital crime. So we have a distance to travel when, in April, gunmen burst into the apartment of a champion of human rights like Zulaz Munan, a local employee of our embassy in Bangladesh. Zulaz was brutally murdered for being gay and for founding a magazine showing pride in that identity. So we have to keep moving forward, and that is why we are engaged at every level of leadership. In Washington, through our embassies, with our global partners, in a concerted diplomatic effort to push back against bigotry, against violence in all of its forms. And we are particularly concerned about violence facing transgender persons, and we are taking steps with partners to reduce it. It is why we're giving our full support to a resolution before the UN Human Rights Council that seeks to establish and report on a mechanism to combat violence and discrimination against LGBT persons. It's why Ambassador Power will lead the U.S. delegation to an upcoming major LGBT rights summit to take place in Montevideo. And it's why last year I appointed Randy Berry as the first ever U.S. Special Envoy for the human rights of LGBT persons. Randy has traveled to more than 43 countries, promoting our message, including societies where that message is far from welcome, because those are precisely the countries that most need to hear that message. Our expectations, I think, are realistic, our language diplomatic, but our determination in support of equality is absolute. As Winston Churchill advised, there is only one duty, one safe course, and that is to try to be right and not to fear to do or say what you believe to be right. We're also doubling down on the Global Equality Fund, a groundbreaking partnership between governments, corporations, and foundations. And since 2011, excuse me, the fund has provided help to partners in more than 80 countries who are advocating for legal reforms and social justice. We're also continuing to address challenges that many face as representatives of our government. I know that many of your family members have been denied diplomatic visas and accreditation by certain countries. And that is why I sent instructions worldwide directing ambassadors to engage host countries at the highest levels on the specific issue of obtaining diplomatic visas and full privileges and immunities for all of our family members, no exclusions. And it is why we recently launched a LGBT working group on diplomatic accreditation. The Department and GLIFAA are also taking concrete steps on other personal issues. This past year, for example, FSI and GLIFAA introduced an online course to broaden education and awareness of LGBTI concerns. And GLIFAA and MED are working together to improve department medical services for transgender employees and candidates. So we are moving steadily forward. And as each speaker, I think, has said, we underscore, even as we celebrate and come here to mark Pride, our work has to go on, and it is far from complete. The fight is not yet won, but we should never, ever forget the distance we have traveled. We should never forget what makes America different from almost every other nation. It's not a common bloodline, folks, or a common religion, or a common ideology, in many places forced on people, or even a common heritage. What makes us different is that we are united by an uncommon idea, the idea that we are all created equal, and we are all endowed with inalienable rights. That's what defines America. It's what makes us different from any other country on the face of this planet. It's worth fighting for. That is the principle that defines us, and it is, in the end, what pride means: to speak out for equality, to show solidarity in the cause, and to stand up and say loudly and clearly, no matter where you are, no matter who you love, we stand with you. Happy Pride to everyone, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Secretary Kerry, Secretary of the Army Fanning, Special Envoy Randy Berry, Mr. Slocum, and the distinguished guests from many of our foreign missions in D.C. and partner organizations in attendance. Events like today remind us that we have made a lot of progress toward equality, but there is still a lot more work to be done. As always, we are stronger when we come together as a community, and therefore, thank you very much for today's Pride event, and happy Pride, everyone. Thank you.